not at that point yet, and it would need. At the moment, we're at the information stage. I mean, if you get the sufficient sort of mass, of informed and aggrieved people being organised by groups such as, for example, local communities here on Waiheke Island, and then saying, okay, let's call people together in Auckland and let's have a march or something. The short answer to your question is no, but this is getting the word out, because very few people in this country have even heard of. It's no fault of them. It's not that they're ignorant or stupid. This is just not a topic that's being discussed. It's not one that's plonked out in front of people. It's not one that's on TV every night. Why does the government want to privatise public assets? Key and Bill English are trotting out the tired old lie that it is to reduce debt. This was used during the huge wave of state asset privatisations in the late 1980s and early 1990s. It couldn't be justified then, and certainly can't be justified now. At least Roger Douglas had the decency to tell the truth. In an early 1990s book praising him and his cronies for the sell-off of state forests, Douglas said, quote, "I am not sure we were right to use the argument that we should privatise to quit debt. We knew it was a poor argument, but we probably felt it was the best to use politically." Unquote. Roger Douglas, in a book praising him to the skies and saying how clever him and his mates were for flogging off the forests. That's what Douglas said. No bullshit. So, okay. New Zealand does have high foreign debt at present, but the great bulk of it is private debt, not public. Of that private debt, around 70% is bank debt, which is only a problem for the Australian owners of our major banks, not the New Zealand taxpayer. As it is, New Zealand's public debt is very low compared to other high-income countries. It is certainly nothing like the public debt levels of countries that have been referred to as the pigs: Portugal, Ireland, Greece and Spain. Countries with which the government is now comparing New Zealand in a propaganda drive to panic Kiwis into accepting there is no alternative to privatisation. Our public debt levels provide no justification for flogging off those assets. The answer to the question is, of course, that the government wants to privatise public assets for ideological reasons. The state-owned power companies, Solid Energy and Air New Zealand, are only the beginning. There is a well-advanced process of privatisation by stealth. People ask, well, what's left to sell? Because so much has already been flogged off. The answer is plenty. Two huge sectors which the transnationals want to get their hooks into are water and local body services. But what's wrong with privatisation? 3 examples should suffice. Telecom, the railways, Air New Zealand. You don't need me to spell out the details of all that was wrong with their respective privatisations, necessitating renationalisation in the case of 2 of them. People say, who cares who owns the power companies? The state-owned ones behave like bastards anyway. And don't I know it? I'm a customer of one of them, namely Meridian. True, but the solution is not to flog them off to a private owner, but to enact a policy that state-owned companies supplying an essential service actually be a public service rather than profit-obsessed corporations which are publicly owned whilst exhibiting all the worst characteristics of privately owned big business corporations. That requires a political decision to change the business model of those and other state-owned enterprises from profit to service.